is Sandra Mollon. I'm coming to you today from my studios here in Valley Spring, California. I am an avid dyer, hand applique, and raw edge applique artist. I also thread paint and embroider and embellish, and I just love quilts and all textiles. I've worked for 20 years in Baltimore album style, and I wrote a book for C&T called Seasons of Life. If you are new to applique, I wanted to prepare a few video lessons to help you get started in a way that you will find that it's much easier than you thought and will open a world of possibilities for you. And I have a surprise for you. It doesn't all have to be finished by hand. Even though I'll demonstrate some hand stitching in some future lessons, I want you to see that you can also do it by machine in a mock hand applique type style that will finish up your quilts much faster and still give you beautiful results that you can be proud to share. So follow along. I hope you learned some great tips, and I'll see you in class. Thanks so much for joining me today. All right, I'm prepared to do a little hand stitching today, and I have two hearts here. One I will finish by hand, and one I will finish by machine. I have a small square, a 10-inch square of a background fabric I would like to put my hearts on. I have my glue basted, some scissors to snip my threads, a fine number 11 milliner's needle. I think you can barely see it there. It is a fine needle. And I have with me some 100-weight silk thread that I really love for hand applique. So let's start there. I'm going to take one of these hearts away for the minute and just work on this one. I've kind of positioned them loosely on this fabric where I want them, but if you have a pattern that you're trying to follow, you may position that more carefully. But for today, what I'm going to do, I think you can see me doing, is I'm going to take a little bit of my Roxanne's glue basted and just on my seam allowance where I have the fabric doubled, I'm putting a very few little tiny dots of glue. I don't want to over glue. This can be peeled up and moved if I have to, but I shouldn't have to. Once I have it positioned where I want, it only takes a few seconds, and it is, as you can see, it'll be tacky right there. If I wanted to rush that, of course, I could heat it with an iron, but just pressing it there will be fine. So now let me cap and set my glue aside and take my needle and cut a piece of thread. I'm going to cut a piece of thread that's maybe about 18 inches long. I think that's about as much that you'll ever need at a time for hand sewing. And I always thread my needle from the side that is furthest away from the spool. Keep your thread in that direction while sewing. It works better with the twist. And I'm just going to go right through, I may have to trim that end, right through that small eye of the needle. I usually can just do it on the first couple of tries. But if not, there are some needle threaders out there that will help you. It looks like I got it. And then I tie a knot in the other end. So I take the end of my thread and I bring it up to my needle. I wrap it around till I get a little ball, and then I drag that ball between my thumb and forefingers towards the end of the thread, and I get a nice round knot at that end, and I'm hoping you can see that. And then I trim with scissors till I just have a tiny little tail left, maybe an eighth of an inch long. I can pick up my work now, excuse me, and I can go in and I kind of try to find a part that's maybe not glued down really well and put my needle right in the fold of that heart and bring it out. And so now my tail is buried in that applique. And here, and you can see, of course, the thread color I chose matches the thread color of the heart, not the background. If you put your needle in right there at the side and bring it up an eighth of an inch in front of you, and I'm right-handed, so I am sewing towards my left hand. My left hand supports the work. My finger underneath of it, is there, and my thumb ahead of it kind of helps to shorten the stitch, because I can bend the fabric back just a little of the heart and of the applique, and it'll help determine the stitch length, like so. And so the nice thing about hand applique is that you can, is how portable it is. You can take this wherever you want to go. So if you happen to be, waiting for a doctor's appointment, or, watching your kids play t-ball, all of those things, that type of thing, you can be working on something like this quietly, and fill many of those hours with, something fulfilling for yourself, which I think is terrific, especially when you're raising small children and you can grab those quiet moments for yourself. Hopefully your stitches on the back will be nice and even and short. And as I go completely around this heart, eventually I'll bring my needle to the back, and I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to just knot off as if I was completely done. So I just usually wrap my needle around my thread a few times until I form a little ball knot on the back and trim off. So that's how I would complete all of my hand applique. In the next little lesson, though, I'll show you how to do that by machine. All right, this part of the lesson is for people who feel that, hand sewing is just not for them. So I'm working on a Bernina 770 Quilters Edition. I have the number 20C open toe embroidery foot on the machine. I have selected a narrow zigzag that is 1.6 setting in width and 1.15 in length. That's a very narrow zigzag. Your numbers on your machine may vary. I have in the upper thread a clear monofilament nylon thread that works just great for this, and in the bobbin I have a bobbin thread in a neutral color. So I'm going to go ahead and start by lowering my foot. And I have a very fine needle in my machine, actually. It's a size 60. This one happens to be a universal needle, which isn't as sharp as like a Microtech sharp needle, but I think it'll work fine. It's what I have on hand, and I'm trying to make the smallest holes possible. So now that I have my foot kind of lowered, I'm going to go ahead and hit the foot pedal, and I'm going to try to put my needle in right to the outside edge of my heart, and then pull up that bobbin thread a little bit so that it doesn't catch underneath. It's very short, so I will probably come back and trim it off later. Let's go ahead and take that tail behind and begin the stitching. So as I stitch, my goal is to stitch with every swing of the needle on the right into the background, and every swing of the needle as it zigzags to the left into the heart. And I try to do this slowly. When I get to the point where I feel like I have to adjust, I stop, and I can kind of show you that you can pivot, I guess, at the point. As I get down there, stop, pivot, and then maybe hit the gas pedal and go one more time over, swing over. I'm going to pivot again, and then hopefully hit just into the outside. Let's go ahead and grab a pair of scissors and trim just that, those little threads I see on the other side. And I thought I had some scissors handy, but I don't. So I'll leave them for now. Let's go ahead and continue on. And you can speed up as you get more confidence, and on the straightaway it's fairly easy to do. Always pivot with your needle down. So I have my machine on a needle down setting. And what's great about working on a Bernina too is that when you stop and get ready to pivot, the foot will lift just slightly, and that'll allow you to turn that fabric without having to lift the foot. It'll do that for you, which I think is just a terrific innovation that they put in their machines for people like me who really love to sew. And you can see as I'm working my way around this heart, it doesn't take very long to applique it. So if you're making a child's quilt or something that you don't care if it's all perfect tiny hand stitches, this is a secure way to finish applique very quickly with still finished edges. And I'm coming around. I'll have to stop and grab those scissors, and then I'll have one little trick for you to kind of finish it up. Okay, I've got my scissors. I've trimmed off my tail. Let's take a look at the back. You can see I just have a very light bobbin thread in the back that's almost the same color as the fabric itself, very light. And because I have a monofilament in the top, you don't see any thread there either. But you do see a little bit of some tiny holes, perhaps. And so what I sometimes will do on a machine applique piece is I will take and I'll try to smooth those out just by running a fingernail, or potentially you could do this with the edge of a little bamboo stick or something, and I try to smooth out those holes so that they kind of disappear into the work. And as you can see, that makes your applique finish very quickly and very easily. And honestly, once the machine quilting goes around that heart, it would be very difficult to even know that it was finished by machine. So that technique is called mock hand by machine applique, and as you can see, it's a terrific way to finish up your applique easily, and it works on a variety of different types of fabric. I used cottons here, but I've also used it for silk, and it's worked just great. Because my heart was previously basted down with Roxanne's glue basted, it didn't move, and I didn't have any pins in my way to snag or catch my thread or get in the way of my machine. So I hope you enjoyed these little lessons, and I'll see you in class. Thanks again. I'm Sandra Mollon of Valley Springs, California.